Hey guys, back with another disassembly video for you. This time we're taking a look at an MP5 variant, this one being a Zenith imported MKE gun from Turkey, the Z5. And this is a licensed copy of the MP5 made on HK tooling. So let's go ahead, get into it, and see how the MP5 disassembles and how it works. Alright, so we can go ahead and kick things off by popping out our MP5 magazine. And then the first step here is going to be popping across this non-captive HK style pin. So we can go ahead and pull that out from the stock here. It can get a little bit tight, but I'll go ahead and pop out. So you can see there it is non-captive, just with a little spring keeper on there. At which point we can pull off this A2 style of stock. I love these stocks, they work very well. Of course, the A3 style retractable ones are really nice, but they are heavier and a lot more expensive. Now you will see we have two holes here in the sling keeper, and to go ahead and retain this pin, you can actually just pop it into one of those holes and it will actually lock in there, so you have a good place to retain it. And moving back to the receiver, the next step is taking off our pistol group housing and our trigger group. So to do that, we need to go ahead and pull this front pivot pin. Now you'll see this is actually going to be smaller than the stock pivot pin here. So you can see it's also non-captive, so if we pull in the stock again, this one, the stock one, is large enough to be retained in there. However, this front pivot pin is not, so just go ahead and slide right out. So just be aware of that if you're going to use this to keep a hold of your pins. Now this lower is going to be the pin style, of course, since I just pulled one out. There's also a ledge style lower, which I'll show you here in a sec, but we can just pull that right off the bottom here. So you can see not a whole lot going on. We have our safety selector on the left side, and then we have our trigger group in there. To get our trigger group out, we just take the safety selector, pop it up till it's 90 degrees, pointing straight up. We will pull it straight out the side, and this is just for the SEF packs. The Navy style packs are quite a bit more difficult and kind of a pain, but then we can just pull the trigger group straight out of the housing. All right, guys, so I have both my Zenith over here on the right side, my MKE gun, as well as my US-made PTR 9KT, my MP5K receiver here. And I'm going to try and demonstrate the difference between the push pin style lower, which we get on my Zenith gun, where we have that extra pin at the front of the receiver, and then the PTR, which doesn't have a pin up there. This has a ledge style receiver, so you can see up here we have a very large wedge here at the very back of the mag well, and that's what this clips onto here. Versus, we'll see on the Zenith here, there is the hole for the push pin there, and then a much smaller ledge, which fits a much smaller hole in the Zenith trigger group here, which fits up into that guy. Now, as far as the trigger groups themselves, these are actually interchangeable. I'm able to put my Zenith trigger group into the PTR, into the grip frame here, and not have any issues, and vice versa with the PTR as well. So I can put that in the Zenith one, not have any problems, but there are some slight differences, such as this is a 2X hammer versus a 1X hammer. Not really going to get into that stuff in this video, but there are some slight differences there. The main reason for that is going to be because you can actually put a full auto style trigger group, so full auto one of these guys, into the lower housing for the push pin style one, versus it will not fit into the lower housing of a ledge style lower receiver. And you can see there is no full auto block, so you can put a full auto bolt carrier into the PTR, versus the Zenith. The way they get around that with the ATF is they actually have a block right there, which disallows you from putting in a full auto bolt carrier with a trip into the receiver. So that's how that keeps you from making this into a machine gun, versus the ledge lower does it by having a different trigger group and grip. Now, the bolt carrier group, which you can see is kind of beat up on mine. This thing probably has close to 10,000 rounds through it, so it's definitely seen a ton of use over the years. But for this guy, all you got to do to disassemble it is you're going to rotate the bolt head counterclockwise. So we'll go ahead and turn that guy, and then our bolt head is just going to pull straight off the front here. So you can see our rollers in there, as well as our extractor there, which is being held on with that little spring. And then we have the cutout there for the ejector as well. And we'll come back to this guy in a second, because then we can come back down here and we have our locking piece. Now, depending on your ammunition, you can swap this out if you're going to be using a suppressor for a different angle, which will give you a different unlock time depending on the pressure that's being exerted on it. And then we can actually demonstrate how the roller delay system works here, because you can see we have our rollers there. Our locking piece inserts into the back of the bolt head, and when you press it all the way forward, it's going to go ahead and pop our rollers out there. So the way this works basically is it's in the recesses there, and then it will, when you shoot it, it's going to try to press backwards because it is a blowback. So we have pressure pressing back on the bolt, and then we have the recesses in the receiver there. So it's pressing back against those recesses, and then it has to push the bolt head back against those angled surfaces on the inside here. And that's what eventually allows it to open as soon as those are fully retracted. Now, coming back to the bolt carrier group, at this point we just had the firing pin and spring, which just pops out like that. Pretty simple part there, really nothing too crazy. And then our bolt carrier, not a lot going on this guy compared to the 5.56 or 308 versions. Now, generally, it's not really necessary to take off the handguard one of these if you're cleaning it, but it is pretty easy to do. We just have a third push pin up here at the front, so we'll go ahead and slide that guy across. Again, same style non-captive pin, and this one is going to be smaller as well. And then we can just pull down on the front of the handguard and slide it forward slightly. So you can see there are a couple of protrusions out here which lock into the trunnion right here, so you can see that ring across. And then we have the little hole there for the push pin. This part up top here is your cocking tube. Now again, this doesn't have a gas system, so there's nothing in there except for the cocking handle. And then you can see, looking in there, you can see how the cocking handle works, and there's a little ball detent there, which is what holds it up front here and makes it so it's very nice, non-reciprocating. And then there's a little cover up front here, as well as your front sight hood, and there's a pin in there that you can pop out, and you can pull out this plate that the front sight is a part of and replace it if you want to put night sights or some weird, crazy, different shaped sight on there. Now, moving back, we can check out the receiver itself. So you can see in there, there's a piece riveted on, and this is basically just a buffer right here so cases aren't hitting right into the receiver and potentially bending it. But one thing I don't necessarily love about the MP5 platform is how difficult these things can be to clean. So you can see in there, this is where our locking recesses are. So there's one here on this side and another on that side. It's very, very difficult to see on the inside here, but that is our trunnion. And it is fairly tight on the inside of MP5 receivers, so it can be a little bit difficult to get in there and clean. And these things definitely need to be cleaned because they get filthy. Over on this side, one question that gets asked a lot is, what is this ring thing here? And that's actually for a sling, so this is just another sling loop at the front of the receiver. But that's really all we have to go over for the receiver itself. Alright guys, and that is a Zenith Z-5 license-built copy of the Heckler & Koch MP5 fully disassembled. So thank you for checking out the video. Please like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and stay tuned for more videos coming up soon.